Following the worst mass shooting in U.S. history, authorities continue to investigate Sunday's massacre at a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida. Internet ride-sharing app Uber makes inroads on the continent. And why have ticket prices for Broadway's biggest hit show soared? Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. The United States is mourning victims of a weekend massacre in the southern state of Florida. Investigators are continuing to search for answers as to why a lone gunman killed 49 people and wounded 53 others Sunday in the worst case mass shooting in U.S. history.
Look at that, just shooting back and forth. That is crazy.
Authorities say 29-year-old Omar Sadiq Martin, armed with an automatic assault weapon, opened fire at a nightclub that catered to a primarily gay clientele in downtown Orlando. Martin traded gunfire with a police officer working extra hours at the club, then left the building and returned, holding a number of hostages for about 3 hours.
It was like complete chaos. Like, if I can relate it to anything, I'd say it was literally like a scene out of a movie. People are screaming, help me, I'm trapped. And people are getting trampled. Like, there was no clear exit sign at the club, so we didn't know which door to take or where to go. But it was just really crazy.
The police rapid response team stormed the club and killed Martin in a shootout. The FBI says Martin made 911 emergency phone calls during the rampage, expressing support for the extremist Islamic State group. The FBI had interviewed Martin 3 separate times in the past after he allegedly bragged to co-workers about ties to al-Qaeda but could not verify the allegations. Martin's ex-wife, Sitora Yusufi, told reporters Sunday in Colorado the gunman was mentally ill.
A few months after we were married, I saw his instability, and I saw that he was bipolar and he would get mad out of nowhere. That's when I started worrying about my safety, and then after a few months he started abusing me physically very often and not allowing me to speak to my family, keeping me hostage from them. And I tried to see the good in him even then, but my family was very tuned into what I was going through and decided to visit me and rescue me out of that situation.
In Washington, President Barack Obama declared the Orlando shootings as both an act of terrorism and an act of hate.
This is an especially heartbreaking day for all of our friends, our fellow Americans who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. The shooter targeted a nightclub where people came together to be with friends, to dance and to sing and to live. The place where they were attacked is more than a nightclub. It is a place of solidarity and empowerment where people have come together to raise awareness, to speak their minds, and to advocate for their civil rights.
Obama also said the shooting was a further reminder of how easily someone can get their hands on a weapon to shoot people in schools, churches, movie theaters, and nightclubs. The president ordered U.S. flags to be flown at a half-staff in memory of the victims. Well, for the latest on the Florida shootings investigation, viewers Ramon Taylor joins me live via Skype from Orlando. Hello, Ramon.
Hi, Vincent.
Now, first, tell us what else is emerging as far as the investigations are ongoing regarding this guy.
Well, as far as we know right now, Omar Sadiq, he is U.S.-born, of Afghani descent. We're learning a lot from his co-workers, from his ex-wife, as you heard before, of the kind of dangerous attitudes that he portrayed before. So we're learning a lot about his character, again, in sort of spilling a lot of words of hatred towards the LGBT community, racism, that's those sort of aspects. And so right now we're just underway to see whether, he's actually self-radicalized, whether he had any legitimate ties to the so-called Islamic State. This is an FBI investigation that will go on for some time.
And we know that he had been questioned by FBI officials before, but they couldn't find anything to pin him down with, right?
That's right. It's a very interesting scenario. It's probably not the only case that's like that. I mean, this is somebody who was a suspected terrorist or on the terror watch list for a time. was investigated by the FBI not once but twice in 2013 and 2014, and yet because he ultimately was found not to be a legitimate threat, he was able to go out and purchase firearms at the end of the day.
But again, also it's because he's a U.S. citizen. He's just one of the many U.S. citizens who can go out and purchase again. There was nothing to stop him from doing so, right?
That's exactly right. And so what you end up happening is you have a guy who has hatred filled in his heart and ultimately carries a handgun and an AR-15, which is an assault-type rifle, and is able to carry that into a nightclub.
Now, besides what we know, what is it that officials want to know, to establish, as we wait now to hear more from them?
Well, again, we're trying to find out whether these ties to the Islamic State are indeed legitimate. On the other hand, we're just at this point trying to find out more information on the actual victims. You know, it's very important at this time to keep the focus on those who lost their lives. It's easy to get caught up in all of the attention of who this man was, when really the people that we need to be remembering are those whose lives were lost and whose names are just emerging this morning. Again, over just about a dozen or so names of those killed were still not released as of this morning. So we've seen a lot of grieving families who just want to find out the ultimate fate of their loved ones.
And indeed, you've been there not such a long time, but do the people in Orlando really care too much about the politics around all those issues, or what are they saying?
Politics right now is for D.C., it's for the campaign trail. Here in Orlando, we've seen an immense show of support from both politicians, from the people of this town, of this city, excuse me. We've seen an outpouring of donations, blood donations, lines that have gone on for blocks. At one point, 600 people in line to try to donate blood to those that are still hospitalized, which we've heard there are about 6 that are still in grave condition. So there's a lot there are many shows of support and love right now, and it has to keep going. There are so many that are still in need of that kind of support right now.
Well, we'll keep watching. Ramon, thank you very much for your reporting.
Thank you.
That's viewers Ramon Taylor reporting live via Skype from Orlando, Florida. Now, in the wake of Orlando Sunday morning massacre, Imam Abdul Salam Sharif Adam of the Islamic Civic Society of America in Minneapolis, Minnesota, told viewers Somali service that Islam forbids killing innocent people, particularly in the month of Ramadan.
Well, it's really sad and unfortunate that people who are claimed to be Muslim act these kinds of crimes. And as we have said in many times, it's not a matter of religion. In my opinion, people who perpetrate these acts are not following any religious teachings. As we know in Islam, human life is sacrosanct and is valued, and religion really preserves that as one of the requirements of the Islamic faith. So again, it's people who are sick, who have ulterior motives, and who have no understanding of the purpose of life and the general Islamic principles of coexistence that commit these criminal acts.
Well, Imam Abdul Salam Sharif Adam of the Islamic Civic Society of America in Minneapolis, Minnesota, speaking to VOA soon after the Orlando shootings. Well, in West Africa, Senegal, a country of more than 90% Muslims, has remained largely peaceful and tolerant of its Catholic minority. The majority of Senegalese Muslims belong to one of the main 3 Sufi brotherhood. Now, how have the Sufi teachings contributed to peace and tolerance in Senegal? To answer this question, journalist Khalil Gay recently visited Tivavone, the holy city of Tijaniya, the largest Sufi brotherhood in Senegal.
Senegal is located in the westernmost part of Africa, where over 90% of the population is Muslim. It is a peaceful Islamic democracy which has remained free from violent extremism. Over the centuries, Islam and its principles have been taught and developed in Senegal through 3 main Sufi brotherhoods: Tijaniya, Murids, and Qadriya. Tijaniya was founded in Morocco in the 18th century by Sheikh Ahmed al-Tijani. From the holy city of Tivavone, El-Hajj Malik Sy and later his son Khalifa Abubakar Sy, first caliph of the Tijanis in Senegal, spread the peaceful and open Tijaniya Sufi order in the country and throughout West Africa. Sering Abdul Aziz Sy Al Amin is one of the sons of Khalifa Babakar Sy and younger brother of Shah Ahmed Tijan Sy Al Maktoum, the current Caliph of the Tijanis, the largest Sufi brotherhood in Senegal and guardian of the spirituality of Tivaouane. We asked Al Amin if Senegal's peaceful, non-violent Islam was threatened by today's world trends.
Some scholars returned from various Arab countries where they had been influenced by several sources and wanted to change the order of things in Senegal, claiming that the philosophy of Islam developed by our ancestors was not correct. We said, no. What you received as teachings of Islam in the Arab countries does not match our understanding of Islam here.
Certainly, Senegal may be the only country in the world where a Catholic priest can be vocal in front of news cameras defending the principles of Islam and citing Quranic verses. Abbé Jacques Seck is an influential member of the Senegalese Catholic Church.
Is Islam a topic for dialogue? Yes, it is very clear in Surah 5 verses 40 to 48. It says, diversity, compete in your good deeds. Be different for the best of humanity.
Sering Abdul Aziz Sy Al Amin says that Senegal must continue playing its role as a distributor of peaceful and tolerant Islam in Africa. That is why he has modernized the city's Quranic schools and opened the curriculum to the teaching of French, English, and modern Western philosophy. Ms. Fatou Sall just graduated from the Quranic school.
Here we are taught how to be good examples within society and not to become people who bring trouble every day.
There must be a way that leads to a terrorist-free world for Al Amin.
One solution is a return to God with prayers formulated by the world's spiritual leaders. Good people who know about religion and who believe in God.
Well, Khalil Gay now joins me for more on Islam and peace in Senegal. Khalil, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Vincent.
Yes,
Thanks for having me.
Nice piece and also very interesting sentiments there. But the question is, for many, they still ask the question, why is it that any terrorist act, at least we've witnessed in the recent years, seems to be perpetrated by somebody who professes the Islamic faith?
You know, unfortunately, that's the case. Yeah. But in reality, real Muslims who really read and understand what God says in the book, in the books, because in the Quran they talk about the books of Allah. Yeah. So all the books from Abraham, you know, through Moses, Jesus, etc. So, but the thing is that in this modern world today, it's very easy to sit in a corner, use a cell phone, and do something. And you know, that is one of the big causes of the uncertainty today. Yeah. And you know, as people want to be seen and to set up steps in their own evolution, you see, it's easy. It's Facebook, whatever, you can use it.
Yeah. Now, the leaders here, listening to those leaders in Senegal, the leaders of, religious leaders, they say they do acknowledge that there are some young fellows or some people who have traveled to other countries, and he mentions Arab countries, and they bring back some kind of radical form of teachings. So is that an acknowledgement that there is actually some of those within the Islamic religion who teach some extremist ideas?
Right. But the country, Senegal is very strong on really looking after. You know, today's news, the headlines in Senegal today is an imam who was arrested because he received millions from Syria. So that happens. The state is strong, and the majority is Sufi. Yeah. And those leaders I talked to, Al Amin in Tivaouane, they are very respected. And the teaching come from the 11th century because the Islam has been there over the last,
So they kind of have been fighting to protect the teachings of the Sufi, kind of the Sufi teachings, which do not tolerate violence. Is that
right?
the case?
Which rejects violence, hate, and intolerance. You know, Sufi philosophy, the way it is practiced in Senegal, and that's why we are still resisting to foreign influences. Like you see what happens around Senegal, in Mali, in Ivory Coast. It hasn't yet happened in Senegal because of the strong Sufi practice there. But I don't say it's not going to happen, but I know the situation is not ready for that.
Yeah,
actually.
It's, the biggest challenge usually is the youth. It seems like the younger people get attracted to this kind of ideologies. So how are they trying to rein in on this so that the younger people with this access now, internet and whatever the case may be, don't get influenced?
You know, that's a big issue. The youth have no hope in general in West African countries, you know, and they are looking for opportunities. So they become easily cannon fodder for people who want to use them. And the same youth that goes across the sea is the same youth that goes to Islamic movements. It doesn't mean they're Muslims or they're believers. It just means because they have no hope.
Okay. Well, Khalil, thank you very much for sharing with us this.
Thank you so much.
Khalil Gay is a journalist and a native of Senegal. Now, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vincent Makori. Coming up, do you have what it takes to be an Uber driver on the continent? Stay with us.
This is BizBeat.
Peat moss in a flower pot mixed with worms makes for a delicious treat at this unusual eatery. When customers order our chocolate dessert, it might not look appetizing at first, but after tasting it, they're happy, and many come back for more. Jeff Effentry is the general manager of Hyde, a high-end restaurant in Indonesia known for molecular gastronomy, a kitchen-turned-science lab to make your meal. Another hit is Namaz, one of the first molecular restaurants in the country. A 17-course meal might include the use of liquid nitrogen and rotary evaporators to create unique tastes and textures. But be prepared to fork over a few $100s for the experience. Food expert Bara Patarajoyan thinks this pricey food trend won't last. Because, he says, of its highly segmented market and high production costs. Still, Indonesia's food and beverage industry is on pace for strong growth this year, and for now at least, molecular is in. For VOA's BizBeat, I'm Philip Alexio.
Welcome back. Now, born out of the frustration of two Silicon Valley entrepreneurs trying to catch a cab in Paris, Uber services have flourished since being launched in 2010. They're now offered in more than 450 cities worldwide. VOA's Paul Deho set out on a mission to find out what it takes to be an Uber driver.
With an estimated worth of nearly $62.5 billion, Uber Technologies, an American multinational online transportation company, operates in over 66 countries and 450 cities worldwide. The Uber mobile app allows clients with smartphones to submit a trip request that's then routed to Uber drivers nearby who use their cars to pick up the customer. The service is giving the metered taxi industry a run for their money. To get an idea of how Uber works, I signed up as an Uber driver. This is an example of my actual Uber driver pay statement. But first, let me explain how Uber calculates ride fares.
When someone takes a ride with you, they are charged a fare plus a rider fee. The best fare for Uber X in DC is currently $1.15. Our booking fee is $1.35. And if there is a surge in pricing, then the entire fare is multiplied by that number. Surging in pricing means Uber increases the fare prices during certain times of higher demand.
In Africa, Uber is already operating in more than 6 major cities. Aaron lists, Uber general manager for Sub-Saharan Africa, says convincing traditional taxi drivers to work for the ride-ordering service was an essential part of the company's plan to expand across the continent.
We will be doing a better job of engaging with taxi operators when we launch in a new market, showing them how the technology works. There are a huge number of taxi operators on the platform in South Africa, a growing number in Kenya, and a growing number in Nigeria. And part of our strategy when we launch in new markets will be that engagement up front.
Ruth Kajiri signed up with Uber in Nairobi to support herself as she pursued an acting career. With a return of about $400 a week, she was able to graduate from driving someone else's car to her own, with little investment from her dad.
I'm not afraid. Whatever happens, I need to work Friday nights, I need to work Saturday nights, and I do it the whole night till morning. Because I can't really afford to live in fear. This is my work for this season, and I have to do it. And those are peak hours, you know.
Uber drivers around the world have faced threats and protests from regular taxi operators, who say the cheaper Uber fares are driving them out of business.
What I normally pay my cab guy is around 700 to 800 bob. But on what I paid to Uber was actually 500 shillings. So I cut down my cost by 300 bob, and that's something good to me.
Uber began making inroads into the Nairobi market by offering lower prices and cutting out a haggling that often infuriates customers. Joseph Gitau has been driving his taxi for nearly 20 years.
Watu wetu, they are trusted. I have
worked here for 28 years. There are others who have been here for 30 years and over, and that person cannot leave here. If a client loses something, they will still find it if they come back.
Uber's experience in Kenya to let riders pay fares using cash or via mobile money has boosted growth in Kenya, where about 100,000 people open the app once a month. Uber is facing increasing competition, as many companies provide similar services. Whether they can maintain this sustained growth over the next couple of years remains to be seen. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Tickets prices for Broadway's hottest show set a new record. We'll be right back.
I'm Milar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Have you ever thought about what it feels like to touch a president's face? Now, visually impaired and even sighted people in Russia now have an opportunity to do just this. A 3D portrait of President Vladimir Putin has been installed as a permanent exhibit at a museum for the visually impaired in Perm near the Ural Mountains. People who previously only had the chance to judge Putin's looks by his voice now can see him with their hands. The 3D putting images were created at Vatico, a company which manufactures equipment for blind people. The idea came to them from books illustrated with 3D pictures and was fueled by the Russian president's popularity. Well, next up, tiny drones are a big hit at the International Tokyo Toy Show. Despite their tiny size, the drones are packed with the latest technology. They're safe enough to be flown indoors with a soft cover on each blade that protects people from injuries. Most of these drones weigh a lot less than 200 grams, which Japanese regulations require before needing a permit to fly, especially outside in crowded or residential areas. Some companies have even added small cameras to their 11-gram nano drones, enabling it to film 4 minutes of video in flight. Well, and finally, be prepared to fork over the big bucks to see the Broadway smash Hamilton. Producers have rushed the top premium seat price up to a record $849. The previous high for premium ticket prices was $477 for best seats at the Book of Mormon. Hamilton will easily shatter that mark, an attempt to cut scalpers out of the resale business. And now the show's lead producer has also opened access for people unable to spend hundreds by increasing the number of last-minute digital lottery seats for $10. The hip-hop flavored biography about the first U.S. Treasury Secretary is the hardest ticket to get on Broadway. And that is what is trending today. Now, in South Sudan, disabled people face discrimination, high rates of substance abuse, and unemployment. But for some veterans of the 22-year-long civil war with Sudan, this will not keep them down. They meet once a week in Juba to play wheelchair basketball. Jason Patkin has the story.
The men meet at Juba Basketball Stadium every Tuesday. Some are war veterans with missing legs. Others were stricken by polio. But all of them are athletes. These are players in South Sudan's Wheelchair Basketball Association. Gatluak Kwa Luak helped found the team in 2011. He lost his leg as a soldier in the Second Sudanese Civil War in 2000. Like many others, he learned the sport as a refugee in Kenya.
Wheelchair basketball. It is not easy game. It's very technical. It needs a lot of courage. It needs a lot of mind. Let me say, you have to be committed. It has changed bigger part of disability in me to ability. I realize that I can do anything like other people. Disability is not inability.
It's not only veterans who participate. James Amule got polio when he was 2 years old. He says disabled people are passed over for jobs in South Sudan and are called Abu Karang, a slur.
I have a name. I need to be called by my name, not by a nickname. As my name is called James Amule, I am supposed to be called that James Amule, not to be called that a disabled person, which is not good. Even if you call me that a disabled person, I will not feel like I am a human being.
Already, the sport is changing attitudes. The South Sudan Basketball Federation hopes the team will compete at this year's Paralympics in Brazil.
Everybody will be cheering them, and that will give them a pride and a sense of representing their country.
For now, though, the team wants to grow the sport at home. Many disabled South Sudanese sink into alcoholism and poverty. What's more, for the last 2 years, South Sudan has fought another civil war and produced more wounded veterans.
We are approaching everyone out to have that courage and play wheelchair basketball so that they also begin a new life and realize that they can still do something.
For a nation in need of healing, this sport could be an example of how to move forward. Jason Patinkin for VOA News, Juba.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords. Here is Ambassador Ryan Crocker speaking about Iraq.
We're at an extremely delicate time throughout the region, certainly in Iraq, as the Iraqis struggle to form a government that needs to be inclusive enough that it will bring the Sunnis back into the process.
Delicate. Something that is delicate can break easily. The ambassador says that the situation in the region must be handled very carefully.
Delicate also can mean pretty. A delicate object is pleasing to look at and carefully made.
Now, the next time you hear the word delicate, you will know what this news word means, and you can use it in a conversation.